month. So in the spirit of that observation, we have some ideas to share with you, and we're going to do so in the form of a discussion instead of our usual presentation style format. Now, today our guests are going to explore the nexus between high-performance systems, and home certification for optimized value. And as a real-life case study, they're going to explore lessons learned from one of their own personal homes, which serves as a living laboratory for advanced energy-efficient technologies and is Pearl certified. Now, who's joining us today? Well, it's Cynthia Adams. She's the CEO and co-founder of Pearl Certification. Cynthia is also the co-founder of the Virginia Energy Efficiency Council and a 25-year veteran in energy efficiency and green construction. Voted 2020's Entrepreneur of the Year by Charlottesville Business Innovation Council, she was also the 2018 winner of the Linda Wigington Leadership Award from the Building Performance Association, and she serves on NAR's Sustainability Advisory Group. She has been certified as a USGBC Lead AP and NAR Green Designee. Now, Alan Machuga is the Executive Vice President of Technology for Rheem. Alan is responsible for developing and implementing Rheem's long-term technology vision strategy. He leads the company's global technology group, which includes the controls engineering, IT, digital services, and cloud architecture teams. Before joining Rheem in 2020, Alan served as the Chief Information Officer at Carrier's Commercial HVAC Division and global leader for the company's ERP and digital factory teams. Alan earned a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from Southern Connecticut State University and an MBA from the University of Hartford. Now, facilitating the discussion today is Sarah Gutterman, co-founder and CEO of Green Builder Media. In case you don't know her, she is a former venture capitalist and graduated cum laude from Dartmouth College and holds an MBA in entrepreneurship and finance from the University of Colorado. She has established a reputation as a visionary thought leader and passionate advocate for sustainability, and she works closely with a diverse group of stakeholders in the building industry to develop impactful, long-term green strategies that are simultaneously sustainable and profitable. Now, this webinar is brought to you today by Pearl Certification, which is the gold standard in high-performing home certifications, bringing visibility to the valuable features that make them healthy, safe, comfortable, and energy and water efficient. Now a public benefit corporation, Pearl is the only national sponsor of the U.S. Department of Energy's Home Performance with Energy Star program and is a partner with the National Association of Realtors Green Resource Council. Our other sponsor is Rheem. Founded in 1925, Rheem Manufacturing is the global leader committed to delivering innovative products that save energy and support a more sustainable future. Rheem is the only manufacturer in the world that produces heating, cooling, water heating, pool and spa heating, and commercial refrigeration products, and is America's #1 water heating brand with products available in more than 80 countries. Now, you can submit questions for Cynthia and Alan. Simply use the questions box in the GoToWebinar control panel. I'm going to review those questions and pose those to them during the Q&A time that we have set aside after this discussion. For now, Sarah, I'm going to hand things over to you.
Mike, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I also want to offer a special thank you to our production manager, Mary Kessner. She is our wizard behind the curtain and makes it all happen. You don't see her, but we would not be here without her. So thank you, Mary, as always. Alan and Cynthia, I'm so excited to be here with you today for this discussion because in my decades of experience in the building industry, I have never seen so much momentum towards net zero carbon, net zero energy, and sustainable building in general. When we first started Green Builder Media nearly 2 decades ago, it was a very steep hill and a very big boulder. And I will say that the hill is less steep and the boulder is much smaller. And now we're having very active conversations with our builder, architect, energy rater, other building professional colleagues and manufacturers about getting to a net zero carbon built environment. And it really is a yes and moment where we need all kinds of solutions. We need to embrace enabling technologies like heat pumps. We need to deploy renewable energy and energy efficiency measures and upgrades, all the way through to other types of sustainability upgrades that make our built environment, our homes and our building more resilient and energy efficient and healthy and solar plus storage powered. And then we need the certification and the validation and verification through programs like Pearl to measure the impacts of these different green building tactics that we are deploying. And so as I said, I'm really happy to be here today with the two of you as leaders in the industry, both on the enabling technology manufacturing side as well as on the certification side. So let's begin our discussion today by talking about how high performance systems and home certifications are cost-effective tools that can enhance the sustainability of projects, decrease ongoing operating costs, and increase the long-term value of homeownership. Because at the end of the day, as we're talking with our builder audience, our consumer audience, everyone's trying to get their arms around, okay, if we're increasing, let's say, upfront investment, but that's really going to decrease ongoing operating costs and increase long-term value, including resale value. How does that all pencil out, and how do we measure it all, and what do we know are meaningful upgrades and upfront investments versus ones that might not make as high of an impact? So, Alan, let's start with you. Can you talk about how the combination of advanced technology and home certification optimize home value?
Yeah, sir, great question. And I actually have to thank Cynthia and her team because they actually helped guide me along this process when I first met them at one of our dealer conferences. What I would say is that there is a lot of investment choices that need to be made around the tech that is now going into a home build. I'll include insulation as part of that tech, right? So insulation, lighting decisions, your HVAC decisions, your water heating decisions. And if you're driving towards the more energy efficient rating, well, guess what? There's a price tag on it. What I would say, Sarah, building off of what you're seeing in the industry, right? The government's right there right now. So the rebates exist to help consumers get into the higher end product, if you will. But what was stunning to me as I went through the process is getting to the other end with Cynthia's team and appraising the value of the house for all these decisions I made. The appraisal on my house went up about 100,000 based on all of these decisions that we made in terms of high performance appliances, our HVAC decisions, our solar, our window, our insulation decisions. So that was all very, very, interesting to me as we went through the process.
Cynthia, I'm going to ask you to answer that question in just a second, but Alan, first, I'm hoping you can go into a little bit more depth, because I know that one of the challenges that we've had in our industry, and a lot of our builder colleagues and friends talk about how they don't always see that increase in the appraisal value. So can you just talk a little bit more about how you were able to realize that increase in appraisal value? Was that easy because your appraiser just noticed the increased value of the investments in the upgrades that you made, or did you have to actually work with your appraiser to do some training and education?
Yeah, listen, I actually think it's twofold. I think, if you look at what Cynthia and her team are doing, they're educating a whole industry about this. So there's a lot of work that I think Pearl and others are doing to kind of educate, what is going on in, let's say, the real estate industry. I will tell you what was surprising to me as I was going through the build and getting my construction loan, that the appraiser was actually coming back to me with questions. Hey, are you really doing solar in the house? Are you going to have batteries in the house? Are you looking at using heat pumps for your heating and cooling? Hey, what are you thinking about with your appliances in your kitchen? It was the first time, and my wife and I have moved frequently. We've owned eight different houses. this is the first time going through those types of questions actually with the mortgage appraiser, which obviously is a different type of appraisal than the appraisal for, let's say, a sale. But what I was finding is that education is starting to reach out to people. So for me, it was a very easy conversation. And the question she asked actually got us a couple of extra, it got us a little headroom, if you will, in our construction loan that we needed.
That's really encouraging to hear. I know that that's not always the case, so I'm glad it was for you. Cynthia, can you chime in about how the combination of advanced technology and home certification optimize home value?
Sure. I think where I would start is just to say that advanced technology, I think oftentimes we associate that with smart homes, smart devices, things where the tech part really looms large. But advanced technology can apply to how your air exchanger, like, do you have one in your house? Are you adequately ventilating your home on purpose as opposed to by accident because the house is not air sealed well? So I think that, for Pearl, the really important part is helping the buyers understand the feature to benefit value for them. And when a builder invests in better products, quality installation, and some of those more advanced technologies, they sometimes also need a translator to help the buyer understand, how does this improve my quality of life? Like, I get it that the house may cost less for me to own and operate, and that may be very important to me, but indoor air quality may also be very important to me. Durability may also be very important to me. Comfort may also be very important to me. And maintaining the value of my investment, that is the home, may also be very important to me. And it's hard to get those things without a home certification, because a lot of these features, if they're not invisible in the house because they're in places where people don't normally go, like attics and crawl spaces or mechanical rooms, they may not intuitively speak to their benefits. And I've heard HVAC contractors frequently tell me that a silver box looks like a silver box to your average home buyer. Isn't it like a refrigerator? Can I just plug it in and we're good to go? No, it's not. Design matters, installation matters, commissioning matters, particularly with the HVAC. And so the certification, if it's done right, is not just a certificate. It's not just a label on the home. It's a translation layer that helps inform the buyer about the value of the property and the systems that are in it. And I think that's really where Pearl certification shines, because we have a certification package. It does educate the buyer. We also have an appraisal addendum, which is an official document created by the Appraisal Institute that's meant to inform the appraiser about the high-performing features of the home, so that they have the information that they need to do their job well and assign that contributory value like Alan saw in his case. And I think, again, when the certification is done well, which, I think we do it well, we've certainly tried, you give the different stakeholders the information that they need in order to do their jobs, whether it's an MLS listing report for the real estate agent, the educational component of the certification for the buyer, or the appraisal addendum for the appraiser. Everybody has a different need to understand that property for different reasons. And I think if a certification can really speak to that need and help the builder and the home buyer really capture that value.
So Cynthia, thank you for that. I have a follow-up question before we move on to the next scripted question, so a little off script here. We've been hearing lately from, again, some of our progressive builder colleagues and friends who are building high-performance, healthy homes, that they have to price them at a similar level as the homes and the community across the street, which might not have high-performance, healthy homes, and therefore they feel they are actually underpricing their homes in today's inflationary high mortgage rate market in order for home buyers to be able to afford to get into their homes, but they don't want to do that. And they want to understand how to actually provide a better sales pitch, so to speak, in order to help their home buyers understand how a higher performance, healthier home is going to be more comfortable, is going to reduce ongoing operating costs, is going to have higher resale value. And they understand the concepts, but they don't always understand the language that they need to actually utilize. So I'm just curious, I know from our cognition data, we have some very specific data points that we've collected about, even all the way down to words that are resonating with home buyers in different generations with respect to high performance home, healthy homes, resiliency. Resiliency is really of high importance and interest to younger generations, we're seeing, because they understand the impacts of climate change on the value of their homes. They're having trouble getting insurance as well. So from your perspective, what are some of the most important talking points that a builder should at this point share with their home buyers if they are building these high performance, healthy, resilient, solar plus storage powered, et cetera, homes?
I think that's a great question. And part of it to me is around understanding what it is that matters most to your buyer. So whether you, on your website or in your promotional materials or in the one-on-ones that you as a builder have with prospective buyers or your real estate agents have with prospective buyers, I think it's really important to kind of ground that conversation in what the goals for home ownership are with the buyer, what really matters to them. Are they growing a family? Does indoor air quality make a difference? Are they planning to retire at some point? Are they going to be on a fixed income? It's important to, as you mentioned, understand sort of generationally, but also in terms of where that person is in their lives, where the buyers are, what matters to them. But I do think that starting out with this idea of what is value and what is quality is really important. And the problem, I think, comes with the fact that oftentimes builders and contractors in general have bad reputations in general with consumers. There's a sort of trust factor in play, or mistrust, I should say. And I think, when you go the extra mile as a builder to get a HERS rating, to build to Energy Star standards, to get a Pearl certification, you're engaging that third party to help build trust with the buyer around the things that matter to them, whether it's comfort, cost, indoor air quality, convenience, durability, all of that. And I think creating that peace of mind is important, and leaning into the nature of the third partiness in that certification is also important when talking about the features and the benefits to those particular buyers. And I do think just a sweeping blanket statement about all of the different benefits that you might get as a buyer, that's a great place to start, but it can also be overwhelming, particularly if the builder is, just ticking through all of the different features to the home. So I think it's important to try and get as specific as you can, and then also point to that third party validation for the sorts of things that you're engaging your prospective buyer on.
Thank you. Now, Alan, you recently completed your own home, Machuga Labs, which is intended to be a learning laboratory. Can you tell us a little bit about the project and talk specifically about some of the challenges and obstacles that you encountered during the design, build, and certification process, as well as the most relevant learnings? What ended up being more successful than you had expected?
Yeah, Sarah, I'm going to try and build off of, the last question you had with Cynthia here, because I think it's a real important one, and it'll go into actually the thought process as we were building our house. Someone had said earlier the unseen things, right? A lot of what we begin to talk about with value and quality of life, I'll say, are driven by the unseen things. Hey, I want hot water. I want guaranteed hot water. I don't want to pay a lot of energy costs to get that hot water. Hey, I want to be in a good indoor air quality space, right? I don't want that unplanned air or that unplanned humidity getting into, let's say, that conditioned space. And what I'll tell you is an interesting story. As we were building in the house, we lived in 3 different temp housing situations, right? One was actually a brand new house, right? It was 2 years old. And it had all of the, glitz and glam, granite countertops, nice tiled floors, etc. But me coming from the industry I do, I like to go behind the scenes and actually see how things operate. Well, the lowest quality possible mechanical equipment was in the home. And guess what? That equipment was probably going to fail, wasn't going to perform, and was going to need to be replaced the soonest. So the way that we approached, our house, and there were obstacles on it, is actually we tried to think about all the unseen things, right? We were worried about insulation and air tightness. Well, guess what? That drives the fact that you got to think about airflow and incoming air quality that you need to worry about filtering. So insulation was a big deal for us. Casey from Cynthia's team was like, Alan, can you put more foam in your ceiling? That'll be better for us as we're going for the ratings, right? So guess what? I said, hey, Casey, we're going to go with this. We're going to spray more foam, right? Because we wanted to make sure that the guts of the house was where the quality was, right? You can always paint, you can always repair a counter and stuff like that, but that's where we wanted the guts. But in that work, duct work actually became the biggest issue for us on how you're going to move air through the house. We're in a historic area, so we're only able to build on a certain amount of land, right? And so our building envelope was already shrunk, and now I had to worry about duct work, right? So I didn't want to give up indoor space for duct work. So what did? We put more HVAC systems in, because then I didn't need to take up HVAC, duct space. So those were like maybe some of the obstacles and the learnings. As we lived in these other houses, we spent more time thinking about what's behind the scenes and kind of the guts, if you will. One of the most successful things I think we did was actually go with solar. We're in the Northeast. We built this house in the Northeast. We're not in the Sun Belt. It's semi-cloudy today. But the fact is my house is 50% off the grid, right? Up here in the Northeast, right? We've seen immediate value for what we've done with solar in the house. And given that I run the house with all heat pumps, that's a tremendous value all the way around, because the house is mostly electric. I'll tell you the biggest learning we had is because we wanted a smart, energy efficient home. You can quickly get pulled to all the glitzy things, the AV, the entertainment systems, etc. I've got 17 different subsystems in the house. Nobody's figured out how to connect all these things well yet, okay? But the things that are of the most value to me are actually being able to control the energy use and consumption and scheduling with my HVAC systems, my water heating systems, my irrigation system, because again, thinking about water consumption and usage, want the irrigation system running when it's raining out, for example, or drought conditions. Those systems actually return the biggest value to me. And they're not that glitzy, but a lot of what's being pushed, I think, to consumers is the AV and the granite countertops and all that type of stuff. When you can actually think behind the scenes is probably where you're going to get the most value if you think about the quality that you're putting behind the scenes.
Alan, that's interesting, and it's really refreshing to hear how you, as a homeowner, building and designing a home, granted you're in the industry and you have the knowledge and experience, but how you approached designing and building this home with respect to airflow and comfort and optimization of a lot of things that we're talking about. As a point of reference, just that I think you'll find interesting. So Green Builder Media, we reach millions of early adopter and first mover consumers who are committed to sustainable living. So, you know, where they are today is where the mainstream's heading in maybe the next 6, 12, 24 months. And I never would have thought that one of the things that they think right now is the sexiest upgrade to make is demand-side energy management systems. Like, who knew that demand-side energy management systems would be so sexy within this group of consumers? Do you have a demand-side energy management system that interacts with your utility to do peak load shifting and shedding and time of use pricing, or is it within more kind of the ecosystem of your house itself?
Yeah, so I do participate in selling energy back to the grid, right? I do. If I took you to my mechanical room, it's actually one of my favorite rooms in the house. I think my plumbers, my HVAC, and my electricians did a fabulous job with that one room in the house. It's the one room I like to show everybody first, right? And I got a whole wall of my energy system, right? For the home, everything from a smart load panel, to where the incoming panels are for the solar and my Tesla, power walls, etc. So yeah, we participate in all of that. What's interesting, and we get back to the fact that this is a living lab, it's one of the areas that the Rheem team is spending time on is around kind of this demand side capability, if you will. And water heaters are like a thermal battery. They're a cheaper version of a Tesla Powerwall, if you will, right? And offer tremendous value to the utilities in terms of load shedding and load shifting. And that's where we're spending a lot of our time, thinking about that opportunity where we can add extra value to the homeowner or the building owner, as well as contribute to the greening and decarbonization of the grid and offer value to the utilities.
Well, Alan, as the CTO of Rheem, I would not expect anything but a, an incredibly advanced mechanical room in your home. So Cynthia, let's shift back over to you and talk a little bit more about how home certifications can enhance value as a strategy for builders and building professionals. What do you say to skeptics who claim that certifications aren't worth the time or the financial investment? And what are some of the most important investments that building professionals or home buyers or homeowners can make specifically to augment their certification levels?
So I'm not sure who the skeptics are. I don't know if that's the builders that don't want to pay anything extra because they're value engineering the heck out of their subdivision, or if it's potentially coming from the homeowner. But I would start off by saying that the data is there that absolutely documents that new construction homes sell for more if they have a third-party certification. Freddie Mac did a study back in 2018, found a 2% increase in value. Our own studies have shown an average of 5% increase in value, and there are other ones that have been done. And these are studies that are using appraisers to actually write the studies. They're using comps as the basis for coming back with the value premium. So you don't need to take my word for it. Others have proven out that the data is there. But I will say something that I think is really interesting about our own study is that for homes that had these features, high performing features were there, and they actually had the certification, but the agent did not put that information into the multiple listing service. The agent did not call out the certification in the marketing of the property. The agent did not in any way call attention to these features that were there. The house didn't sell for more. And the reason it didn't sell for more is because, again, we didn't have that education layer to go to the buyer, to go to the buy-side agent, to go to the appraiser, ultimately, that helped them identify that the features existed, and here are the quality of life benefits you can expect to have as a result. So it's really important to spotlight these features. It's important, I think, to do it with a third party, and to make sure that the information is presented in a way that the different stakeholders can access it, because then you will see the value. Because you understand as a buyer why it is important to pay more, what it is more that you're getting from that home. And there are mortgages out there now. They're a little bit few and far between, but there are different types of mortgage you can get through Fannie or through Freddie that extend the buying power for the purchaser if the house is high performing, because the loan takes into account the fact that the monthly expenses will be lower, and that will increase the purchasing power of the buyer. So some builders are looking into that. I certainly would encourage buyers to do their homework when it comes to like Green Choice and other types of mortgages that are out there that may help them remodel an existing home to become a high-performing home, or to be able to afford a high-performing home that has a HERS rating or a third-party certification. You had asked about what are some things that people should be thinking about in terms of important features for a high-performing home. And I'm kind of with Alan, like, let's start with the basics. Let's make sure that you've got adequate air sealing, that you paid attention to the ventilation in the house, and that you have insulation that meets or exceeds modern energy code. Because if you do all of that right, then when you get to your HVAC system, you've given it a good foundation, if you will, for the design and for the choice of the system itself, and ultimately for what we also think is really important, that's a quality installation. So you want to make sure that the HVAC contractor has adequately thought through the design so that you can be comfortable in your house, no matter what room you're in, no matter what floor you're on. And you want to ensure that the system was commissioned at install, because a really high efficiency system that has not had its performance tested at install can effectively lose a lot of its efficiency as a result. And you don't want to be paying for an 18 SEER, 20 SEER system that's functioning like barely at the federal minimum standard because your contractor didn't go the last mile and make sure they did that quality install. And most homeowners, I think most home buyers, think that quality install is just a part of how HVAC gets done. Nope, it's not. It takes extra time, care, and effort on the part of the contractor. And you should be willing to pay for that as a homeowner, because that money will come back to you in the form of lower bills and less maintenance issues and the longer life of your system. So I think that it's not enough just to put the right thing in. You want to put it in correctly, and then you want to maintain it over time. So that I would start with those things. And Alan, I bet you got some thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, listen, Cynthia, it's interesting you went down that point, because and it was a great question, Sarah, because my mind is totally shifted on home buying right now, right? Figuring out the guts of what you're buying is more important than, let's say what the surface looks like. So, building off of Cynthia's thing about the insulation, thinking about the mechanicals, these mechanicals are becoming more complex, right? There's more electronics in them. Airflow matters. The tightness of the home and the exchange of the air in the home for the indoor quality conditions that you're going to have are so important to our everyday lives. One of the things we've been focused on is making sure this commissioning process can go better, right? And Cynthia highlights, well, you could be buying, and people could be buying a high-tiered system and actually not get the full value out of it because the commissioning and the installation didn't happen properly. Some of the things that we've done with our thermostats is actually in our high-end units is making sure that we're making that installation process for the contractor go smoother. Our stats are intelligent enough to be able to guide the HVAC technician through the install so that at the end of the process, it's commissioned properly, and that you can be assured that you're going to get the full value of the performance out of the unit at the time of install. So, having the right professional, install these things and making sure that you're getting the performance out of the equipment that was actually installed is very, very important. You can think upon this a home sale of actually coming back and rechecking the commissioning, right? Like I think about a home inspection report today. It's pretty much looking at the basics. Are there bugs? Are there any other things that you need to worry about from wood and rot and water damage? But no, there should be more time spent in actually looking at the mechanicals to make sure that they were properly commissioned, so that when you take ownership of that new house, you understand exactly what you're getting.
Thanks, Alan. I know we have a couple of questions coming in from the audience. I have a few more questions, Alan and Cynthia, for you, but I think that, Mike, why don't we kick it over to you to ask one or two questions from the audience so we make sure we have time to fit those in. And then I'll come back on and ask a couple of my final questions.
Sounds good. So this question came in from David. David's up in Canada. And the first question he had was, do homeowners really want a plaque next to their front door proclaiming their certification or rating? So Cynthia, can you kind of talk a little bit about the appetite for something like that?
Sure. And to be clear, we don't give homeowners a plaque, but I know that LEED does, and depending upon the subdivision, your home association may or may not want you to have things like that up in the first place. But I do think that homeowners want to take credit for the investments that they've made that have improved the quality of their home, particularly if it matters to them from an ethics or a moral perspective, i.e. they care a lot about climate change and they want to know that they're doing their part. But I reflect often on folks that I know that have solar installed and they want to whip out their phone and show me how much power they produced that day. Or sometimes you see with the demand side, if there's a way to show that the home is saving money because of the way that the systems are engaging with the grid, then you get the energy efficiency savings. So I think that people do want to take credit for that. They want that attaboy, attagirl, because it does cost more up front, even though it's saving you more over the long term. So do they need that in the form of a plaque? I don't know, but I do think that the third party component can be really important for validating the messaging that the builder has given them. And importantly, when the builder moves on and that homeowner is ready to sell 5 or 7 years or 10 years down the road, how do we represent that this was a really well-built home to begin with? Where does the data live or exist to speak to that? And one of the advantages of Pearl certification is that we have a consumer-facing app called Green Door, where the home's profile can be accessed by the homeowner. And if they make additional improvements or they replace things over time because they wear out, that record can be updated. So the certification is actually a living certification for the home. It's not a one and done label like some of the other scores and certifications are that are out there. And I think in that way, it's very much a part of the way that people live their lives these days, and want to be able to have easy access to important information about things they've invested in. And I would put their home in that category too.
Okay. And the other question that David sent in, and I think it's for both of you, but Alan, you brought it up a little bit earlier with the whole appraiser angle. Are real estate agents and appraisers on board with some of the stuff? Does it vary by locale, or I mean, what are you seeing? Cynthia certainly is the co-founder of a certification system, but then also Alan, you spoke about appraisers earlier. So can each of you kind of give your perspective on the, I guess, market acceptance on some of this stuff?
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna dovetail off of Cynthia's answer that she was given to the first question, and where my mind was going on that, Mike, was the fact that everybody's some level of brand conscious, right? So if you think about these certifications, in what typically is a person's largest investment, and being able to say, hey, my home is X, right? I think is of value to people, right? Because people do talk in a brand, conscious way, or at least outwardly, people think about that. So being able to distinguish the things you're doing in your home differently in your neighborhood, I think is of value and of importance to people. But I agree with Cynthia. I don't think they need a plaque. It's just something you're going to talk about. The Green Door app is pretty excellent. I actually whip it out, similar to my Tesla app or my EcoNet app for our Rheem products. And, I show people, right? Hey, I have a platinum house. Here's what it means. And here's all the features of getting there. So, I think as people are more app conscious and brand conscious, I think those things are important. Going back to the appraisal discussion, I think the industry is moving to where having a high-performing home and having that energy efficiency and having that as part of the sales pitch, I think is growing, right? I think we're moving to that point in our history where that's becoming important. I think folks like Pearl and Cynthia's team continuing that education through the industry is going to be very, very important. My rough, guess at this from just talking to realtors in my neck of the woods, I'd say we're probably at the 10-15% range of people thinking about this, which to me is, pretty good when it was probably zero about 5 years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see how this progresses as we progress through the decade, as more greening of the grid, as more greening of our products gets pushed, into the marketplace, how the evolution of what's going to happen in the real estate industry and the mortgage industry is going to evolve with this.
Yeah, so I'm going to build on what you were saying there, Alan. I think that there are a couple of different factors that are going to drive more education and a sort of bigger, warmer embrace from both the appraisal and the real estate community when it comes to high-performing homes and these features. The fact that most states have passed an energy code as a part of their building code means that new construction is just inherently so much more efficient than what we have been doing 10 or 15 years ago, and that's your minimum standard. Like we've moved the football in that sense. When it comes to existing homes, I think the Inflation Reduction Act's tax credits and rebates, particularly the rebate programs, once the states start to launch them, are going to put energy efficiency more at the top of mind, not only for the homeowners, but also for the real estate agents and appraisers. And I say that because there's a mandate for every state to create a market transformation plan as a part of their rebate program. And the market transformation plan has to specifically address how states will help ensure that homeowners which have made these investments will be able to accrue value for resale or rental. And it mentions specifically data aggregation, MLS integration, certification, the sorts of things that we care passionately about at Pearl Certification, but the things that are actually going to create that flywheel effect in the market where we can take these homes that have these features, and instead of it being an outlier, 10 to 15% of the housing stock and 10 to 15% of professionals actually understand it, and start to move that more towards, no, this is how we live. This is going to be the average house, hopefully in 10 or 15 years time, or sooner, really, if you're worried about climate change. So it's a lot of work. I mean, we're not there yet. I look at the Appraisal Institute, which has done great work in creating certifications for appraisers and coursework for appraisers, both light and heavy, to help them get up to speed on how to use different types of methodologies if there are no comparables in their market in order to assign value for efficiency or solar. And then I look at the National Association of Realtors, Green Resource Council, and their green designation, which is its own education for real estate agents to get up to speed on some of these building practices and technologies so that they can talk to buyers about them and be able to help their clients better understand why these features matter, why they should invest in them, et cetera. But I feel like we're kind of all coming to alignment between, you know, the public interests, whether it's the federal government, states, utilities, and then private interests in terms of how people want to live their lives. And what we need is more education and communication so that folks understand that these are investments with a return. They're not just improvements. They bring real value to people over time. So more to come on all of that with agents and appraisers. I agree with Alan that I think that we're getting somewhere, and people are really starting to take these sorts of things much more seriously than they did in the past. And we still got work to do.
Yeah, Mike, let me chime in. I have two questions, but I'm actually going to fold them into one, partly for the sake of time, and then also just in case there are any more audience questions that you want to get to, Mike. So, Alan, the context behind this question is, as you well know, Green Builder Media does a lot of demonstration projects, and we try to do a whole spectrum from very aspirational to very attainable, so that we can show how to raise the bar, but also how to raise the floor. And, you know, in that spectrum, Alan, I would probably, I think that Machuga Labs is probably more on the aspirational side of things, which is great, but I also know that there are very attainable elements to the project. So Alan first, and then Cynthia, can you talk a little bit about what the most replicable elements were of your project? And then, you know, kind of the part two of this question is, what are your top tips, tricks, and hacks for building professionals in our audience, either live today or watching the recording of this webinar, for scalability? Because I think that, you know, we can talk about how important it is to get to a net zero carbon, energy, and water, all electric, healthy, resilient, solar plus storage powered built environment. We can talk about getting to 45L so that builders can access $2,500 for Energy Star certification and $5,000 for Zero Energy Ready Home certification. But, you know, a lot of the questions that we hear, which I'm sure you do too, is, okay, we get the concepts, but how do we get there? What's the lowest hanging fruit? And I think, fortunately, you know, there is enough awareness to take those first steps and to get to at least Energy Star, if not Zero Energy Ready Homes. Those aren't the only two programs out there. They're not the only way to measure high performance healthy homes. But you know, talk about, again, Alan, what you would say again is the most replicable and your most impactful tips.
Well, here's what I would say, Sarah. Everything I've done is repeatable. Why? We just happen to precede what happened with the mass building code. So actually, my entire general contracting team were thanking me after the build, because when they had to go for their annual training, they're like, well, we just did this. We just did all of this at Machuga's house, right? So, you know, we took a very practical approach with what I would say is the building envelope, and a lot of the things that we put into the house with energy efficient products. You know, we put Rheem heat pump products in the house. They're attainable today, if you will, in the marketplace. They're affordable today using the incentives that are in the marketplace with the IRA and other utility, you know, programs with rebates, et cetera. So all of that is repeatable. The lab portion, what we've tried to do with thinking about Machuga Labs is hey, because these products are becoming more sophisticated, what are the different experiences that we can develop off of them to improve the quality of life with the product over its lifetime for the end user, right? i.e., we have technology in there that lets you know when your air filters are getting clogged or dirty, right? Wouldn't it be nice that they get replaced or you're notified that they should be replaced on a frequent cycle? And it's just not a light sitting somewhere that says, oh, replace your filter type of thing. If you're going to participate in these demand side programs, how can you alert the end user in terms of what the type of program that you're going to participate in? So a lot of what we've structured in the house is for residential and I'd say light commercial that we're able to test out some of these, let's call them digital product use cases in the home here. And quite frankly, we've got the toughest consumer and my wife that everything must work, you know, coming out of the box. So my team knows my wife, you know, by first name. And when she's calling, they know, okay, hey, we've got a fix that we've got to put into something. So that's the part of the lab part. What I'd say is the tips or tricks, I really don't have any. Like, what I would encourage people, there's a lot of people that want to do, you know, DIY, right? These products are becoming more and more sophisticated where you actually need quality installers to come and do this work for you. So like our pro network, if somebody asks me, hey, Alan, can you recommend, you know, an HVAC system or a water heating system, I refer them right to our pro network because those are the guys that are dealing with this day in and day out. And that's what I would say is the important part here. My analogy on all of this usually is back to the auto industry. 3 decades ago, you could probably, you know, repair your car. Fast forward, most people can't repair their cars because it's a computer on wheels, if you will, right? The similar thing is happening to the mechanical systems in our houses, and getting the right team in place to support you to do these installations, to do your maintenance, I think is a big deal.
Sorry, I had muted myself. Alan, one more just very quick question, and then Cynthia, I want to ask you this question and have you answer to wrap up the hour. But Alan, did you have integration issues? Because I know that that is one challenge that a lot of our builders and even home buyers report, is that sometimes when they put in these advanced systems, they do have some technology integration issues with elements of their energy systems, demand side energy management systems, et cetera. So did you have any of those integration issues?
Sarah, I'll go back, and I'm very, very grateful for the team that we assembled when we put the house together. I'd say that we had quality electricians, quality HVAC team, quality plumbing team that essentially it was all pretty smooth for me, which was surprising because I thought commissioning was going to be a little more difficult. Me being the tech guy, as soon as things were turned on, I was playing with them remotely. They slapped my hand and said, hey, keep your hands off of it. We're not fully commissioned yet. So you can't play with this stuff until we tell you it's good to go. But I would say the integration thing was easy for me. And quite frankly, it might be because of our products. We design our products to actually make them installer friendly. And quite frankly, my HVAC team had never installed a Rheem product before and actually was very complimentary of the equipment that they installed and how easy it was and how intuitive it was for them to get put in place. So it could be part of actually the integration could have been simple because of the way our engineers have actually designed the products.
Thank you. And Cynthia, in the last few minutes that we have, tips, tricks, and hacks.
Well, I think for builders, if you're working with an architect, then a design charrette is a great place to start for the custom build and figuring out how you optimize for, again, the goals of home ownership that your customer has, but particularly around, you know, comfort, operational efficiency, you know, maintenance, durability, et cetera. Probably much in the way that Alan's experience was with his builder. I think if you're a production builder, you know, using that 45L, going after Energy Star is a great place to start. But again, sitting down with your rater, leveraging their building science knowledge, whole house as a system, so that you can bake into your production process the things that you'll need to do to hit Energy Star is an absolute must. And that can be cost effective, but you need to give it some thought and work with your installers to figure out how to optimize and economize. For the home buyer, look for a home that's got a rating, whether it's a HERS rating, a Pearl certification, an Energy Star, but some sort of a third-party rating on the home is going to tell you that for sure this builder built to a higher standard and they engaged a third party to validate that. And I think if you're just getting started as a homeowner, then I would encourage you to go into Green Door. Even if the house that you have right now wouldn't qualify for certification, you're thinking about building, or maybe you're thinking about upgrading, it has a lot of information in there to help you understand which systems are perhaps the most important to invest in and why. We also include in there an integration with climate checks. So if you wanted to get a sense of what sorts of climate resilience issues are at play for you, that's done by zip code, and we can offer some suggestions there as well. But those are the things that I would say off the top of my head, Sarah.
Wonderful. Well, Cynthia and Alan, thank you both so much for a riveting conversation. I know I learned a lot and really appreciate you sharing your expertise. Mike, I will kick it back over to you to wrap things up.
All right. And again, thank you both, Cynthia and Alan, because we really do appreciate the discussion. Sarah, as always, very good job facilitating. Also, thank you to our audience for attending today and the questions. Thank you very much. And also, one more thank you to both Pearl Certification and Rheem for the generous sponsorship of this webinar. Now, we have another webinar coming up next week, Thursday, April 4th to be exact. It will be the 5th webinar in our Housing 2.0 series. We're going to be talking about translating the hidden value. So we actually hit on this a little bit today. Translating the hidden value of zero and how we can utilize behavior change techniques to assist that effort. So we're going to be talking a little about that sales process. That seminar is going to start at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, again, on April the 4th. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and take care, everyone. So long.